So, you've probably seen the headlines about mass layoffs, right? The latest one making waves is from Paramount. 1,000 corporate jobs just gone. But what if this isn't just about one company's bottom line? Well, according to a really sharp analysis from the YouTuber Eli the Computer Guy, this is all part of a deliberate strategic move that's happening across entire industries. And today, we're going to break down exactly what that strategy is, and more importantly, what it could mean for you.
Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll get a sense of the sheer scale of these layoffs. Then, we're going to dig into the, let's call it controversial motive the source claims is behind it all. From there, we'll look at the ripple effects on the wider economy. And finally, we'll get to the most important part, a concrete plan you can use to protect yourself.
So just how big is this trend, really? The analysis we're looking at starts with a single headline, but as you'll see, it quickly reveals a pretty consistent and frankly kind of alarming pattern.
The thing that kicked off this whole discussion was Paramount cutting 1,000 corporate jobs after their merger. I mean, that's a big number on its own. But as the source points out, it's really just a drop in the ocean. And this is where the perspective really shifts. The analysis argues these aren't just isolated incidents from companies that are in trouble. He calls it a consistent drumbeat of layoffs, pointing to tens of thousands of cuts at giants like Amazon, Intel, and Microsoft to show this is a huge cross-industry thing.
So here's the crucial takeaway from the source's point of view. These aren't companies that are financially stumbling and trying to right the ship. No, he argues this is a deliberate, widespread corporate strategy, and it's being executed right out in the open.
Which, of course, leads to the big question. If these companies aren't failing, why on earth are they cutting so many jobs? Well, the analysis points to one primary motive. Publicly, you always hear the same justification, right? It's all about efficiency. But the source claims the real, unstated driver is much, much simpler. It's about boosting the stock price and making the shareholders happy, period.
And the source doesn't really mince words when he describes what he sees as the core corporate mindset here. He uses this quote to capture a philosophy that he argues puts shareholder profits above everything else, and that includes the employees.
The analysis connects this theory directly back to that Paramount example. See, the new leadership promised investors $2 billion in cost savings, and these 1,000 layoffs, they're presented as a very clear step toward hitting that massive number. Now, to explain this sudden whiplash, the source suggests that just a few years ago, the metric for success was totally different. He argues companies were hiring like crazy almost just to show investors how big and successful they were. And now, that trend has completely flipped on its head.
So what does all of this actually mean for the economy as a whole? The analysis uses a pretty specific and, kind of controversial economic term to describe the impact.
Okay, first let's get the official definition down. A K-shaped recovery is when the top of the economy, the wealthy, large corporations, soars upward, while the bottom part, the working and middle-class folks, trends downward. It looks like the letter K.
Now, the source has let's just say, a very strong disagreement with this terminology. From his perspective, a situation where a huge part of the population is actually doing worse cannot be legitimately called a recovery of any kind. And to really hammer this point home, he points to the nearly 100,000 tech workers laid off just this year. His argument is simple. When you take that many high-earning jobs out of the system, all the money they were spending just vanishes from local economies, creating this massive negative ripple effect. All right, after looking at that whole big picture, the analysis shifts to what really matters. What can you actually do about it? And this brings us to what he calls a personal recession plan. It starts with a really fundamental question he urges everyone to ask themselves. He's noticed that in his experience, a lot of employees today, especially in tech, can't clearly explain the core value their specific job provides to the company's actual bottom line. So, from that little bit of self-assessment, he proposes this really straightforward 3-step plan. Step 1 is simple. Save. Build up your cash reserves right now. Step 2, understand. Get crystal clear on why your position is absolutely essential to the company. And step 3, solidify. Make sure that you are the most valuable person they have to fill that essential role. And here's the beautiful thing about this plan. There's basically no downside. In the worst-case scenario, you get laid off and you're financially prepared. And in the best-case scenario, hey, you just end up with a big pile of cash, which opens up a whole world of new opportunities for you. And all of this leaves us with one final kind of lingering question that comes out of this whole analysis. If corporate strategy is being driven more and more by shareholder value, with efficiency as the excuse for a smaller workforce,
What does that signal about the future of the relationship between a company, its employees, and the wider economy? It's definitely something to think about.